how are you going to convince them, despite all this news that they are hearing, how are we going to overcome them? Okay. So of course, I think if you do not realize I think it's almost 3 months. I think day 70 something already of this Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, we all know, of course, it's like in Singapore, everything goes well. We don't even see any aeroplanes flying around. But the thing, this is a fact. This is a fact that this thing will affect certain buyer, thinking that, hey, this might affect the market, right? Number two, of course, stock market, it's really volatile. In fact, this morning, if you see the first thing in the morning, Business Times came out one news, which I'll show you later. It basically says stock market is still in the red, but there's some glimpse of recovery. So of course, you see, there's two types of people here. The type that play stocks, they don't make money, they lose money, then they will not be taking action. Or another type of clients who they don't play stock, but because of the bad situation in the stock market, they think that the prices will come down. Then of course, this COVID-19 we are in, it's already 22. So COVID-19 is 19 because it's 2019, right? So 2019, 21, 22, it's been 4 years or so already, but it's still affecting us, okay? Of course, inflation is that it's very high now, right? And of course, not about the ABSD trust. Before that, December, the cooling measures that came out with the heavier ABSD, rising interest rates has rise. It's a bit interesting now, the interest rate, we talk about it later, right? The disparity for fixed and variable rates are very high. So all in all, I'm trying to say that maybe for yourself, maybe for your network, these people who need a little bit of push, they somehow are affected by one or two or all of these things that I mentioned. And of course, end of the day, our objective today is not a long session. Today, my objective is a short session so that you can get these slides that I'll be sharing with you, okay? And then if the person got no issues, then you don't need to. If the person, no matter what you say, went the action, you also don't need to. This center part, that maybe they talk to you, they're a bit willing to listen to you, but then, hey, you got nothing to show them, you got nothing to draw and talk to them about, right? So that's what our objective for today, right? It's not only applicable to this Ang Mo Kio project, right? So today what we're going to share with you is applicable to any real estate agents out there doing any real estate, be it your resale, be it your project, any project. It's when people talk to you about real estate, how is the effect on all this bad news that's happening around, you have something readily in your iPad to show them, to talk about. Of course, there's like 20, 30 pages here. You got to be familiar with that 20, 30 pages. You pull out whatever that they are talking about. If it's the interest rate, you talk about the interest rate. If it's the inflation, you talk about inflation. If the Russian-Ukraine war, you talk about that accordingly to what they have on their mind. If they got nothing on their mind, they just want to listen to all the things happening, then you got a very wholesome, probably 30-page deck that you can share with them, right? Okay. So of course, I think 8 reasons. I hopefully you can remember all 8 reasons, but of course, promise me at least remember 4 lah. So it's good enough lah. But of course, I think if the slide's not that difficult. Okay, let's tackle one by one, right? So Russia want to war on Ukraine. There's nothing we can do. It's a bit far away from us. It's something we watch on the TV. But of course, I think because this time round, it's been, personally to me, I think it's been a bit heavily advertised in the media that for me, my age group, I first time see, wow, like a peaceful country, almost like Singapore, can have missiles coming in, boom, then the properties get blown up and people die, and I see body bags and things like that on the TV. So it's not something that we read in a history book, World War I, World War II, that we are not in it, we just read from a history book. So this thing is quite real, no? This thing is something we watch on the TV. So definitely there will be a group that is affected on this, okay? So of course, I only have one point. When people talk about, will this Ukraine war affect Singapore property? Okay, of course, the answer is we never know, right? But the answer is generally no. That's what we want, ma. Of course, to be honest, right? This is an agent's webinar, so that's do an agent talk. Our ultimate goal is to say that it doesn't affect our Singapore property market. So, but we cannot just say that, right? So ultimately, number one thing, I think America being half the world is always at war if you were to remember, right? So that's just an elaboration. But importantly is if you look at the stats, right? Our Singapore real estate market, right, from here all the way up to all the way here has never been affected by the much of the war, actually. That's all we need to prove. In fact, right, we are always only affected by things like financial crises, cooling measures, which is artificially suppressed by ourselves, our government. In fact, if we talk about all this ongoing war, you look at the prices, the number of transactions, maybe for the last 20 years, with every war going on, it basically just keep rising up. That's all we need to talk about. Okay, today, really, I'm just going on very surface. We're not going to dive deep into, wow, every single statistics, right? So this is just going to help you with table conversation, coffee conversation. Okay, we're good, right? So basically, war is not something new. This time around, it is because it's been very much on the TV, all right? So this will affect people's mentality. All we need to prove is just for the history of numbers, wars going on, it's never affected our prices, our transactions much at all, right? Okay, so that's very important. And of course, the volatile of the stock market, right? I'm not really a stock guy. I don't really play a lot of stocks, but you know, for you, all you guys out there, you know, but we're not going deep into. I'm just thinking along, there's this group of people that they probably also don't play a lot of stock, but they just look at all the rate and all the news on the papers. They just think this will affect property market, right? But all I think I found a very good information. It's accordingly from history, right, all the way down, right? Stock market recover actually usually within 6 months, right, from all the geopolitical crisis. All right, that's all we need to know, because here is 3 months, here is 6 months, majority recovery within 6 months. That is very much what we need to know. Okay, and of course, all in all, RE, which is real estate, has beaten stocks in Singapore. So you can see in Singapore market, right, the number of increment for real estate, it's a lot higher than you playing stocks. Okay, I'm not saying that, wow, we want to ask them don't buy stocks and just buy property, right? First thing first, stock market volatile wise don't really affect the real estate market much, right? And of course, if you were to put your money into stocks versus real estate, we just want to prove them real estate in Singapore, per se, Singapore has done so well that it surpassed stock market, right? Of course, if you look at the Singapore house price versus the stock price, rate will be house price. It's always on the top of the black line. So again, on stats, on graph, it's like that. On numbers, it's doing much better than that. Okay, so these are the two topics that's a little bit technical. Okay, and of course today, 13th of May, you can see first news come out this morning. Of course, Singapore shares jumps at Friday open. Okay, jumps a little bit, but all in all, it's still much in red. Okay, so this is a fact, right? I'm sure, I mean, your clients are probably, some of them are affected by it, right? Another very current issues, of course, we are all in it, is our COVID situation in Singapore. Of course, today, if you're talking about that, we all know that life is almost back to normal, right? But how has COVID-19 actually impacted the property market would be something that you need to be able to tackle. All in all, very simple, right? There's these two charts that you need to say, right? All in all, for the price index, for the number of transactions, COVID is in over here, 19. In terms of transaction, it goes up. In terms of volume of prices, it goes up. In terms of transaction, it goes up. So property prices are still going up in 2020, 2021, so much that the government got to come up with another latest cooling measure at the end of 2021. That's all. It doesn't affect the property market at all. In fact, it helps the price and the volume to go up. Okay, why? Maybe I felt that Singapore, being Singapore, our governments are very reactive. Throughout the year of the COVID-19 situation, right, other than the circuit breaker, they introduced a lot of relief package. Okay, all in all, this is what I'm trying to say, that money is being pumped from the government back into the society, right, to help to cushion for the citizen. Not that the $100 or the few thousand, hundreds of dollars that the government gives you, they can take and go and buy property lah. But there's millions and billions of dollars, all in all, being recycled back to the industry, right, to the market, to the Singaporeans. And these are all just movement of money. Okay, of course, inflation today, it's at a little bit of a high. Why? Because you can see everything else you can touch and feel goes up in price, right? Our real estates, our vehicle, our luxury item, our watch, our transport, everything goes up to a quite all-time high. And that's why inflation's now, it's really quite high, right? And of course, if you look at the main few costs of inflations today, number one definitely will be housing, right? So number two, food, and number three, transport. Let's talk about housing, because property prices goes up, that's why inflation, right? The means, aka the property becomes more and more expensive. Just like we talk about landed property. We all know landed property keep going up. So if you didn't buy it maybe 5 years ago, if you didn't buy it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it just keep going up. It just keep pricing you out. That's called inflation, right? And if I remember Thomas during his monthly direction, he talked about chicken rice. He talked about McDonald's. Yeah, he talked about McDonald's, how much it was. So last time you can buy with the same amount four burger. Today you can only buy with 1 burger, and that's inflation, right? Okay, of course, inflation, it's a concern. It's at an all-time high of 4%. And of course, this thing is very controversial. The best way, of course, to curb inflation is definitely, number one, you've got to earn more money to catch up with the standard of living. But if not, seriously, since if you talk about property is the most, the increment is the most, but it's also equals to that asset class that can ride you through inflation. Example, if 5 years ago you buy a landed property, 5 years ago you buy a new launch, any of our new launch that we're selling 5 years ago. Today, yes, standard of living goes up because of inflation. Isn't it your profits going to come from the property that have increased, and then that will be the money to help you tide over the inflation, right? And it's very ironic on this part of it, right? Okay, so of course, I think let's just look at the situation a little bit, right? So if currently today you look at just some luxury items on the ground, right? Prices are also keep going up. I mean, if you look at Rolex, which is a very versatile brand, you can see prices of Rolex has rise a lot. Even Louis Vuitton has rise a lot in prices. And people are still buying. It means people are very resilient to price increase, because property prices is also increasing. Car prices is also increasing. Watch prices is also increasing. Luxury item is also increasing. Thus, I think that behavior is acceptable. I mean, the increment of price behavior is very much acceptable because everyone is still buying. I mean, I just did some checks. I just want to share with you. You see, we talk about luxury good like Louis Vuitton, and let's just talk about one of the item. This trunk, right? It's some collector item for Louis Vuitton. If you are into it, you can see like in 2018, this thing is selling for 38,000. All the way till today, 5 years later, it's selling at 65,000. And if you walk into Louis Vuitton, this thing is out of stock. You need probably 6 months wait for it to be delivered. From here to here, it has increased almost double, almost maybe 80%, almost double. And you can see why in 2021, 2022, they increased it twice, not once. Because they're just capitalizing on the liquidity on the market. It's just like in 2019, when we are having circuit breaker in 2020, things hot a little bit in real estate. Maybe they also didn't really increase price a lot. But in 2021, when the actions all come back in 2022, you can see they increase the price a lot. Including, I find sometimes very illogical, right? So a Rolex can cost 50,000 on the website if you can get it. But on the secondary market, it's going for at least 4 times the price of the original price. It's just like if you buy a new launch and then you flip it for 4 times the price. You buy 1 million, you sell 4 million. I mean, in comparison, but of course, these are different quantum. I understand that, right? Even, you know, all of you are crazy about watch, right? So a Patek that is causing 70,000, when you go up to the market, you can flip it for 3 times the amount that you can purchase it. So why are people still buying it? Because buying power are very strong out there now. Okay, all in all, I think the magic figure is why, because the property price increased almost 10% in 2021, is the high since 2010. Okay, and that's why the government introduced cooling measures. Okay, and of course, cooling measures comes in because COVID didn't bring down the price, didn't bring down the volume. It escalated the volume and the price because of liquidity. You can say maybe people are bored, they're trapped, that's why they anyhow go and buy property, but that's not so tangible lah. But there's liquidity. That's why pushing the market on the prices and the volume going up, and thus then end of last year where cooling measures comes up to increase the ABSD, right? But will this again, because this is not the first cooling measure. Every time cooling measure comes out, of course, we got to tackle this question of price will drop because of the cooling measures. And we know, okay? So, and we know the price will not come down because seriously, who are affected by cooling measures, right? There are people who are affected. Number one, we know it's a foreigner, right? So that's why it's quite a hefty sum for the foreigners to come in to buy now. That's why you can see foreigner purchase drop a little bit, right? But most importantly, if you're in the middle clients, okay, asking you if cooling measures going to bring down the prices, you can say, no, it's not going to bring down the prices, but what are you going to talk about with them, right? So in fact, from stats, 78%, almost 78.2% of people do not pay ABSD. So if almost 80% of the people do not pay ABSD, why are they affected by the cooling measures? So why will price drop or volume drop? It doesn't, because 80% of people are not affected. Because our agents are very creative. Of course, number one, they decouple, they buy 2 properties, right? Of course, they will come to a point where you cannot manage ABSD anymore, and you have to pay even like a Singaporean or a PR, your second, third property. But we all know that most of the people out there are able not to pay ABSD because they have enough names to buy that few property that they can also afford lah. I mean, if you can buy more than 5 properties, you can afford, means you can also afford to pay ABSD, right? But we all know Singaporean at large, they probably can buy 2 to 3 properties in their life. That's why, number one, they decouple, husband and wife buy each. And of course, if they still have money, they buy under the children, under trust. And then they came out with the ABSD trust, right? So of course, I think the ABSD trust today still a little bit of a confusion because there's no precedent yet until somebody actually buy, pay, and reimburse back. Then probably the lawyers will be more clear. But personally, one way I look at it, it's just like now, if I buy for my daughter is 5 years old, I am very confident I can reimburse back this 35%. The problem is now, if I were to buy $1 million property, that I just got to come up with $350,000 more. So this will deter me from buying under trust because I got to come up with the cash. Whether or not I can reimburse back, but I believe, because number one, if I got identifiable BO, which is my daughter, and I've got no condition, I make it irrevocable. To me, I read it, it's possible to reimburse back. I think all in all, the government just don't want people to pretend that they are buying for their children, but actually they then swap it around later on or something, right? If you are really wholeheartedly want to buy some properties using your daughter's name or your son's name, right, for the next generation in your assets planning, I think you are not the one that they are going after, in my opinion. Okay, but of course, now you probably ask lawyer, for the case that I just mentioned, I buy for my daughter, can I reimburse back? I felt very little lawyer wants to commit to you. So we take a bit of time for the first case, that precedent, and then things will start going. So every time when there is a cooling measures, right? There'll always be a short knee-jerk reaction. I mean, for those of you who are long enough in this market, right? You've been through a few cooling measures. You know it doesn't stop things. It does slow things down because of the knee-jerk reaction. But then also at the point where things are slowed down, is it an opportunity? I guess it is, right? Of course, for the newer agents that just joined us, if Ang Mo Kio is the first project, or you just join us for the second, third project, all right? I just think that today, one of the skill sets that the agent probably need, one of it, of course you need many skill sets, right? Is to be able to convince this category of buyers that has all these things in their head that I mentioned on my slide one, that all these things, you must be able to have a topic conversation with them to give them the extra confidence. I'm not saying that we can convince everyone using the slides that we have, but right? So those who want to be convinced, or those already convinced, they are just looking for the right product, then it's a different problem at all. Of course, then today, another skill set of an agent is, right? So in order not to pay ABSD, you as an agent got to know how to do your decoupling calculations, how to give them the steps, how they're going to, manage their funds. And of course, with back to this buying trust, right? So you know how to read what the IRAs have said, how these things work. So then you still end up with a buyer that do not pay ABSD at all, right? And of course, if we can maintain 80% of the people that don't pay ABSD, I feel end of the day, the market is big enough. If 80% not affected, only that 20% are affected, it's still going to bring us ongoing, okay? Until proven like, these people that are not affected by ABSD keep dropping because half the population not affected, 50% affected, then I guess then it's a different case then, right? But if you look at it all this while, majority of the buyer are not affected by ABSD at all. Okay, so I think property, it's a very controversial thing. So we look at the population, we talked about number one, is Singapore having more aging population as we go? I say the answer is probably yes, and how that will affect our property, we see. So I feel who is taking care of, like seniors? I mean, like for example, my parents or your parents, right? They probably, the one of the way they can retire today is because they have bought this thing called a condo or HDB earlier. For example, they bought an earlier HDB flat that today has gone up 4 or 5 times, right? Eventually, that is probably the profit that they can take them through their retirement. Right? Of course, other than the savings that they have when they were working younger age, than the savings that they have. But today, property actually are taking care of a lot of our seniors. So of course, populations are always very important to real estate market. And even with the aging population, right, the government already stand by this thing of increasing the populations so that Singapore economy will still be a pushing economy at the age correct. So of course, Singapore population expected to increase. We all know that. Just unfortunately, I think over the last couple of years over here, because of the airport, the planes are not flying, things are stagnant. I think it's kind of slowed down the population growth a little bit. But you all know, economy has already opened since last year, and flights are taking off. All right, I think we are bound to increase probably another million of populations. And you all know this thing is not new. We've been talking about the white paper since like donkey years ago, but this is a long-term plan, right? Today is 2022. We still got about 8 years to go to hit our target of 6.9. So increase in population definitely is going to affect the property market because of demand and supply, right? More people coming here, right? And more of the people that are changing their nationality to Singaporeans, and eventually I think people who can change their nationality to Singapore are people who are doing well in their life, doing good income, right? So they are coming in. Yes, if they are PR, they're coming in to join us, they'll pay some ABSD, but I think it's still in the long run, it's worth it, because ultimately you guys know we're not going to stop at 6.9. all right, this is still a very speculative thing, right? In another probably 70 over years, we're going to hit 10 million. So you must understand, many years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, why would the property prices really go so high? You know, like when I was really young, our parents buy HDB like tens of thousands of dollars only. Today it's hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars for HDB. Like landed property in 30, 40 years ago, it's like hundreds of thousands. Today it's millions of dollars. It becomes millions of dollars from hundreds of thousands because of population increase. Back then, population is only so low, maybe 2-3 million people. Today, it's double up, 5-6 million people. So when in the next 70 years, in the next 50 years, so these are very long-term thing because end of the day, right, property, it's a mid to long-term. At least, I think to me, it's 10 years at least, right? It's not something that you flip it for 2-3 years down the road. Previously, if you could, good for you because probably that was the market loophole. But today, the government just wanted sustainability. And I think after all, real estate is not supposed to be a short-term thingy, right? So I believe people are, lucky people are like those who bought riverfront and all that. I think they are trying to flip it now, subsale. Maybe after 3-4 years later, I think they do have some profit. So you see, this is about buying as early as you can, okay? So of course, another thing is very importantly, right? It's really can we afford the current price trend, whether it's PSF or quantum. Quantum can be controlled by size and size again is to go small, we know, but government also is trying to control the size, right? So you can see a lot of effort at the back end, but in the end of the day, prices will still go up. Size eventually will go smaller a little bit, but there's a base size that the government is trying to control. But logically, this part, you all know what I'm driving at, but you got to be able to share with your clients the numbers. 9,520 monthly household income in 2021, right? This is called average, medium, right? Medium means in the middle 50 percentile, all right? But people, household income today can be 15,000, 20,000, right? It can also be lower, but medium-wise, it's about $10,000 round up. Importantly, if you use that to calculate, husband and wife make about almost 9,500. If you count backwards with today's TDSR of 55, they can easily buy a 1.5, 1.6 million property. And if you then check back to the market, a typical OCR 3 bedrooms or so, 1.5, 1.6 million, there's a lot of availability, right? So this matches back to, are we affordable? Are we at the right band? So of course, I think it's a way to look at it as it's not out of hand. If today the median income is 4,000-5,000 and property prices are at $2 million, right? Then they cannot buy, then who's going to buy all this? Then that it will be the issues that we're looking at. But if everything is in plan, it happens for a reason, right? Of course, why would this most of these people who are having the income are people who probably are at their first MOP house, their HDB flats, and 80% of Singaporeans are HDB. So statistics shows that almost 10%, I'll say around up 10% of the people, okay, sell their flat MOP within the first year, right? And these are the people that sell the HDB. They make that profit, they get back their CPF refund and their own savings, and with the increment of their salary, they are then your client that is coming into, whether it's your Ang Mo Kio project, it's your Piccadilly, to come and buy these new launches. But of course, we know the mechanism behind it is not simple because they sell already, where they're going to stay. So the summer solutions are rental, stay with the parents. So of course, not everybody would be willing to do that, right? So in fact, from the number here, some of them eventually buy another HDB. Some of them eventually buy a resale unit, but some of them eventually actually also buy a new launch. And you can tell some of them can use one name to buy a resale to stay first and buy using another name to buy the new launch with you. So these are all the customers that we are dealing with on the ground. Okay, the framework, it's very clear. All right, so you can see as high as almost 13.4 or 9.5. But if we talk about 2022, what we're driving at is very simple, right? An average of MOP is about 14.5, right? 14,500. But in 2022, which we are in, the number of MOP units is almost triple. So what I'm trying to say is, if 35,000 people's HDB MOP in 2022. And if we look back, we take 10%, 10% comes out and sell because says first year, right? First year, second year also can sell, right? So that's about 3,000 odd people. 3,000 odd people, yes, some will eventually buy another HDB, some will eventually buy a resale property, some will eventually be the new launch customer that you are having. So there's a lot of demand. Okay, whether they will pull the trigger because of the price, of course, of the PSF, that's why it needs a bit of convincing. So that I say there will be some that can be convinced, there's some that cannot, there's some that is automatically already convinced. So you just got to find them the right property, right? After all, we all know sometimes in real estate, why would a customer buy with an agent? It's sometimes a lot of it with relationship. How well, I mean, you're my friends and all that, relationship. It's not always about a stranger to a stranger, then you're going to earn the trust. Trust probably is already earned. That's why there's many types of clientele base out there. So of course, if you're listening to me here, you definitely have someone that is in your network that is trusting you, that is following your opinion. But now I'm just helping you to get more of things that you can actually go and increase that trust that you have with you, to talk to them about concerns that they probably want to talk about it with you with some form of a statistic that you have. Okay, right? And of course, I think if we look at it this way, it's very clear-cut. The developer's interest in land will remain active, right? Even after cooling measures, because you look at all the number of bids, right, for different plots. So of course, this is the project that we're talking about, right? It's in RCR, 15 bids for this upcoming Ang Mo Kio new launch. There's 15 bids, right? And of course, the estimated launch price, it's not something surprising, right? Of course, then we have got Talamera that's also coming up, something very interesting, right? After cooling measures, the land bids drop a little bit, but the price are still ongoing. All in all, what I'm trying to say is developer has a business to run. They have a set of staff that they employ, whether it's a front end, the back end, on the construction side, the workers, the material. If they don't build, then what are they going to do? So they need this business ongoing. That's why they always need land to build property. It's about selling at how much and buying how much only, right? So in 2022, I think this sort of price is something it's the norm already, right? And of course, today, being a developer, one of the pressing issues are always at the construction site where the workers' costs and everything, the materials are going up. So yes, they can drop their profit, right? There's nothing to do with the end consumer, but definitely they need to push the launchers at certain price. They make an order, so it makes sense for them to buy the land at their cost and all the middle part, eventually the end product price, right? Existing project launch, okay? Therefore, of course, we have another problem, we know, right? Gone are the days where you know there's so many mega projects that you can easily swing your clients to. Today, one of the challenge about being an agent is you actually got very challenging because there's very little choices out there, right? Your big projects, like those mega projects, feel like some of you only 300 over units. We got those 2,000 units one, right? Today, really all is sold out already or left with very little units. So that's why today, of course, these are the category that, of course, still got a lot of opportunity because they're definitely priced a little bit more attractive than the upcoming project, right? But of course, if you want to buy Ang Mo Kio, I think this is the only GLS available, and definitely I think people would probably pay a little bit more for something that they want. Okay, of course, our inventory are at record low. We all know that, right? So but you still need something to show. So we are at a very low inventory list. So very easy, we're going to say, when's the last time we have a very low inventory list? You can see it's back in 17 over here. And if you can remember 17, why would the inventory goes up is because of this thing called en bloc law, right? So if the developer come buy from the government, they will eventually buy from the private sector. And en bloc, this word in Singapore is a very special one. It's a bulk buy, but always at a higher price, right? So for 2017, 2018, you know, the en bloc market was really crazy, and thus in 2019, 2021, we have a lot of stocks. Especially last year is crazy, right? Because a lot of stock, right? But eventually, all these projects that is, whether it's Momentum Park, which is an en bloc, you talk about Treasures, which is an en bloc, you talk about Affinity, you talk about Riverfront, all this, right? They're all either sold out or left with very few units of choice, right? Thus, right now, we have at a very low, record low of stocks. That's why the developers also know, since there's no stock, it's just like a Rolex, there's no stock, will the price goes down, right? So eventually stock will drive up, yes, but the price will still don't go down because the stock will be driven up probably by en bloc, which is, you know, obviously. And then en bloc, they buy at high price, how to sell cheap again? And then subsequently, the cycle will come again where the developer, the government ride on the wave and release more GLS at even a higher price. So I think in a first world country like Singapore or like any other countries close to us, record price, it's probably going to be a norm word for record price, you know. Everywhere, every year, it's always record, right? But we are always hovering around GLS and en bloc. So I really think now it's a good chance because the market has a bit of noise. The developers are also very sensitive to their price. It's better than when there's no noise. The developer will want to capitalize on a higher price, and then that's where you know, I think there's an opportunity now. Okay, of course, like I say, one of the key issues the developer has is always construction cost. Their labor, their worker is already been paid higher, and if there is a COVID situation going on, they got to go and quarantine their staff, and then they, you know, these are all costs to them being at the back end of your construction, which is very much affecting the price, the front end. All right, so land price went up due to depleting supply. You can see in last year, right? The overall land price is a lot higher than the previous 2 years, right? Because land price is just going up. So that will affect the front end, which is what we are doing at the show flat. Okay. And of course, you can tell also this 2022, right? Land price are already going much higher than over here. But this, of course, this is the lowest of available, lowest. Okay, but high, you still got, wow, almost $1,000 odd, right? But all in all, this is what's going to happen in a first world country. Okay, interest rate is very tacky issue. I mean, people buy property, how many of them, I mean, if you buy trust, you got to pay full, got no interest rate bothering you. But if you were to decouple both property, husband and wife, normally they will still take loan, right? Then loan will be interest rate. Interest rate today is very interesting. Maybe say a year, about 6 months to 8 months ago, or probably 8 months ago, interest rate for fixed rate can be as good as 1%. But today, I think fixed rate is probably 2.3, 2.2, 2.5%. You know, it's like 1.5 times higher. But if you look at today, people will probably go for fixed variable rates because variable is SORA plus at 0.9 or something. It's still about 1.2, 1.3. So 1.2, 1.3 versus 2.3, 2.4, it's about 1% if you take fixed rate. Okay, so I think let's look at it this way. At 2% interest rate, I think people, if compare with 1% is double, I understand. But you must also understand, if you can pay 2.6% for your HDB interest rate at always, I think 2 is like still a cheap, right? But all in all, you know, it's a comparison. 2 compared to 1, of course, is high, but you should always compare with historic. So I think today, interest rate, even variable, is at 1.2, 1.3. It's still a historical low compared to the high interest rate that has happened before. So I think there is still a lot of leverage if you were to take loan, still leveraging on the other people's money at a low interest rate to finance the property that you are buying for the next 5-10 years, you know, right? So I think interest rate, it's bothering some people, but you need to know how to explain it openly. Okay, so all in all, of course, what I'm trying to say is Singapore property price is up lah, right? Up and away lah, right? Versus all these crisis cooling measures that we have, the up is always more than the down, right? The up is always more, right? And the new high is always higher. That is how it goes lah, right? Sometimes I think, seriously, have you ever make money from property before? Actually, also sometimes none of these stats really matters. It's just the way the country is. Every 10 years, the prices go to a new high, and you're just gonna ride on it, right? Of course, stock is a very different thing. Stock is overnight, you can go high or zero or negative. Property, seriously speaking, you will never go to negative or zero. It probably adjusts a little bit here and there, but in the long run, we all know it definitely will go to another new high. Okay, so of course, like I say, today my job is just give you a very quick one. In fact, I am just looking at it at half an hour short one, so that you can just plug and play after listening. Okay, you can do your own research a little bit, but all we want to know today is, number one, the war doesn't have a long-term effect, right, on Singapore property at all by statistics, right? Yes, you can continue to say so, but stats just don't show. Number two, stock market is in the red, but usually, you know, it recovers within 3 to 6 months from geopolitical crisis. Number three, Singapore, actually now we already live with COVID and it's really almost back into norm. Just many people are even traveling and all that already. So, I mean, hopefully, and nothing worse will come again, because we will also never know, right? But I think during the last few years, if within the peak of COVID, right, where things are not even clear, we can still do so well. Now that things are a little bit more clear up and people live with it, I'm sure it doesn't matter anymore. Inflation is on the uprise, but that's why buying a good asset is the solution, right? Correct? So you hope you have bought a new launch 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So that is why good assets, I think real estate is good assets. Cooling measures doesn't really affect the majority of the buyer, because the stats almost tell you almost 78% of people are not affected. Yeah, it affects the small group of people, but overall the property market is still not affected. Population bound to increase. Even after the border open, it will probably chase up for the last few years, which we lost, but eventually population is going to take property prices up as usual. Upgraders will continue to beef up the property sales due to MOP units, because they have got their profit, have got their down payment they take back, and their savings and their increment in their salary. Definitely they are going to reinvest those things back into the market, whether it's resale or new launches. Due to the depleting inventory, developer will continue to buy land at high price, probably at the next round of en bloc, right? And of course, interest rate may be increasing, but you know, that's why it's still at historical low. Compared to 1%, then 2 is high low. But if you compare overall, I think it's still at historical low. So still should take loan and leverage on the low interest rate and other people's money to pay for your property, right? And of course, number 10, I think real estate eventually is a long-term investment, and price will continue to go up over time, right? So of course, it's a very short, comprehensive presentation that I want to give it to you so that you can relook into the whole situation again.
By award-winning developer UOL, Singapore Land, and Kheng on elevated ground with good feng shui.
Unobstructed views towards landed enclave.
Premium towers with exclusively 372 units.
Surrounded by nature, just a stone throw away is Bishan-Ang and one of Singapore's largest urban parks.
Long step at Sparkle Supermarket, clinic, and also laundry services.
Within 1 kilometer to 2 primary schools, 𝐒𝐭𝐫𝐢𝐜𝐿 and potentially 𝐼𝐻𝐿.
And it's just 5 minutes
minutes walk to the Mayflower MRT station. You can see they have the most number of exits, the 7 exits altogether for this station alone.
This is the show flat location, just next to actual site. Entrance is from Ang Mo Kio Avenue 1.
Kio Avenue 1 that was launched for sale last November has been awarded to United Venture Development. It's a UOL-led joint venture between 3 firms, UOL Group, Singapore Land Group and King Leong. They submitted the highest bid of some $382 million. It's the first time in 7 years that a site in the estate was offered under the government land sales program. The 99-year leasehold site is expected to yield about 370 units. Average selling prices of units in the suburbs have been going at between $1,300 and $1,700 per square foot. But one analyst says demand for units at the site is expected to be healthy, selling for around $1,900 per square foot, bringing it closer to the prices of condos in the city fringes like Tiong Bahru and Teluk Blangah.
The site in Ang Mo Kio. Ang Mo Kio is well located. Then the other is that this site is going to have the MRT station is completing, and therefore the accessibility wise is going to be much better. Some of the surrounding area, they are predominantly landed, and then therefore you can actually get a very good unblocked view.